Emily Rodriguez thought her biggest challenge would be managing 30 teenagers in her first literature class. She had no idea that James Wilson was about to turn her life into a living nightmare. But what James couldn't see beneath Emily's gentle exterior was the unwavering support of Detective Michael Rodriguez, her police officer husband, and he was about to learn exactly what happens when privilege meets justice. The morning sun streams through Jefferson High School's pristine windows as Emily adjusts her navy blue dress one final time. Her hands tremble slightly as she clutches her lesson plans. At 27, she represents everything this elite private school claims to value: young, passionate, innovative. Yet she has no idea that 3 teachers before her have already fallen victim to the very student she's about to meet. The hallways buzz with the energy of entitled teenagers whose parents' donations fund the marble floors beneath their designer shoes. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of justice. And hey, if these stories inspire you as much as they inspire me to tell them, consider hitting the thanks button below. Your support helps me continue sharing these powerful moments that need to be heard. Thank you so much for being here with me. Room 217 feels smaller than Emily expected. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the perfectly arranged desks. She writes Ms. Rodriguez on the whiteboard in careful cursive. Her wedding ring catches the light as she turns to face her first period advanced literature class. 28 students file in with the casual arrogance that comes from knowing their futures are already secured by family wealth and connections. James Wilson enters last. At 17, he already carries himself with the swagger of someone who's never faced real consequences. His father chairs the school board. His mother runs the largest charity foundation in the district. The Armani jacket draped over his shoulders costs more than Emily's monthly rent. Yet none of this matters as much as the predatory gleam in his eyes when he spots the new teacher. Emily begins her carefully rehearsed introduction. Her voice wavers only slightly as she explains her vision for making literature relevant to their lives. She's prepared interactive lessons, discussion groups, creative writing assignments that will challenge these privileged teenagers to think beyond their bubble of wealth and comfort. The irony isn't lost on her that she's trying to teach empathy to students who've never experienced hardship. James raises his hand. Before Emily finishes speaking, his smile contains no warmth. Ms. Rodriguez. Right. He draws out her name with subtle mockery. Are you even qualified to teach at Jefferson? This isn't exactly a public school in the ghetto. Several students gasp. Others smirk behind their hands. Emily's cheeks flush red, but she maintains her composure with the grace her mother taught her. I have a master's degree in English literature from Columbia University. Emily responds firmly. Her voice grows stronger with each word. I'm here because I believe every student deserves passionate, dedicated teaching. She refuses to let this entitled teenager intimidate her on her first day. Yet something in James's expression suggests he views her response as a declaration of war. The rest of the period passes in tense silence. Emily manages to introduce the semester's reading list despite James's constant interruptions and stage-whispered comments to his followers. She notices how other students glance nervously between her and James. They've seen this pattern before. When the bell rings, most students file out quickly. Only James lingers, approaching her desk with calculated slowness. Welcome to Jefferson, Ms. Rodriguez, he says with false politeness. His voice drops to a whisper only she can hear. I hope you last longer than the others. The threat hangs in the air like poisoned honey. Emily's hands shake as she gathers her papers. She has no idea that Mrs. Patterson, her predecessor, received the exact same warning before being forced to resign in tears. The faculty lounge during lunch break feels like a war zone. Emily sits alone with her sandwich while conversations halt when she approaches other tables. 3 veteran teachers exchange meaningful glances before Mrs. Henderson, the department head, finally approaches with the weary expression of someone who's fought this battle before. "Emily, dear," Mrs. Henderson's voice carries a warning wrapped in maternal concern. "Perhaps you should consider being more flexible with certain students. The Wilson family has been very generous to this school," and her eyes dart toward the door as if James might materialize at any moment. "Some battles simply aren't worth fighting." Emily's stomach drops as the implication becomes clear. She's expected to give James special treatment because of his family's wealth and influence. The other teachers avoid eye contact. They've already made their peace with this corrupt system. Emily thinks about her husband, Michael, who risks his life every day to uphold justice. She wonders what he would say about educators who compromise their principles for donation money. The afternoon brings 3 more encounters with James, each one more brazen than the last. During third period, he openly challenges every point Emily makes about character development in To Kill a Mockingbird. When she asks students to discuss moral courage, James announces that sometimes people just need to know their place. His eyes lock with Emily's as he speaks. The classroom falls silent. Everyone understands the subtext. By 4:30, Emily sits in her empty classroom fighting back tears. Red ink bleeds across her lesson plans where she's tried to find ways to reach James Wilson. The day has shattered her naive belief that passion and dedication could overcome any obstacle. She's beginning to understand why 3 teachers before her simply gave up. Her phone buzzes with a text from Michael. "How was your first day?" "Beautiful. Can't wait to hear all about it." Emily stares at the message, unable to find words to explain the helplessness crushing her chest. Michael waited 8 years to become a detective. He believes in systems working when good people refuse to compromise. How can she tell him that the education system is rigged to protect wealthy bullies? That her dreams of inspiring young minds are already crumbling under the weight of institutional corruption? The parking lot stretches before her like a gauntlet. Emily clutches her bag tighter as she spots James and 4 of his friends leaning against expensive cars. They've positioned themselves directly between her and the exit. Their casual poses can't hide the predatory anticipation in their eyes. Emily's steps slow as she approaches. Her heart pounds against her ribs like a caged bird. "Leaving so early, Miss Rodriguez." James's voice carries across the nearly empty lot. His friends spread out to form a loose circle around her. "Don't you want to stick around and really get to know your students?" The question contains layers of menace. Emily realizes this is how they drove away the others. Intimidation disguised as coincidence. Harassment masked as teenage hijinks. Emily forces herself to keep walking. Her heels click against the asphalt with false confidence. "I have papers to grade at home," she responds calmly, though her voice betrays the fear coursing through her veins. James steps closer. His expensive cologne can't mask the cruelty radiating from his perfect smile. "You know, Ms. Rodriguez." James's tone becomes conversational, almost friendly. "Jefferson has certain traditions, standards we maintain." His friends chuckle as if sharing an inside joke. Teachers who don't understand these traditions tend to find themselves uncomfortable here. One of James's friends, a tall boy with dead eyes, bumps into Emily hard enough to make her stumble. Her bag spills open, scattering papers across the ground. "Oh, sorry," he says with mock sincerity. "How clumsy of me." Emily kneels to gather her belongings. Her hands shake as she realizes how alone and vulnerable she is in this moment. James crouches beside her with predatory grace. His voice drops to a whisper that only Emily can hear. "You're very pretty, Ms. Rodriguez. It would be a shame if something happened to that pretty dress." His fingers brush against the fabric of her sleeve. The touch feels like ice water on her skin. Emily jerks away instinctively. Her heart hammers as she recognizes the escalation in his behavior. "Don't touch me." Emily's voice comes out stronger than she feels. She stands quickly, backing toward her car. James rises slowly. His smile never wavers, but something dangerous flickers in his eyes. His friends close the circle tighter. Their laughter has taken on an ugly edge that makes Emily's skin crawl. 20 feet away. Detective Michael Rodriguez sits in his unmarked police car. He'd arrived early to surprise his wife with flowers and dinner plans. Instead, he's watching 5 teenage boys surround Emily in what any trained officer would recognize as a threatening formation. His hand moves instinctively toward his radio. Michael has seen this pattern before in domestic violence cases, the way predators test boundaries before escalating to actual violence. Emily tries to sidestep around the group, but James moves to block her path with the casual arrogance of someone who's never faced consequences. "Where are you going, Ms. Rodriguez? We're just trying to welcome you properly." His friends laugh. The sound echoes off the surrounding cars like hyenas circling wounded prey. "Move!" Emily's voice carries a new edge. Months of watching Michael prepare for dangerous situations have taught her to project confidence even when terrified. James's eyebrows rise in mock surprise. He clearly expected her to crumble like the teachers before her. "Or what?" James steps closer. His voice drops to a threatening whisper. "You'll tell the principal, report us to our parents." His laugh is cold and calculated. "Nobody cares what happens to teachers who can't control their classrooms. Miss Rodriguez, you're replaceable." The words hit Emily like physical blows. She realizes this is exactly how they broke the others. Systematic intimidation designed to make her feel powerless and alone. Psychological warfare, dressed up as teenage pranks. Michael's training echoes in her mind. Bullies always escalate when their initial tactics fail. James signals to his friends with a barely perceptible nod. They close the remaining distance until Emily is surrounded with no clear escape route. The parking lot suddenly feels enormous and empty. Any witnesses have long since driven away. Emily's breathing becomes shallow as claustrophobia sets in. She's trapped in a circle of hostile male energy with nowhere to run. "You know what your problem is, Ms. Rodriguez." James's voice takes on a lecturing tone, as if he's genuinely trying to help her understand. "You don't know your place yet. This school has an order, a hierarchy that's worked for decades." His friends nod in agreement, their faces showing the casual cruelty of young men who've never been denied anything. One of the boys reaches out to touch Emily's hair. She jerks away instinctively, backing into another member of the group. "Don't be shy," the boy says with mock sweetness. "We just want to be friends." Emily realizes with growing horror that this is escalating beyond verbal intimidation. They're testing how far they can push before she breaks completely. "Please." Emily's voice comes out smaller than she intended. "Just let me go to my car." The plea seems to energize the group. James's smile becomes predatory as he senses her growing desperation. This is the moment they've been building toward. The psychological break that will send her running like the teachers before her. James reaches for the hem of Emily's dress. His fingers catch the fabric with deliberate slowness. "Oops," he says, as the sound of tearing material fills the air. "Looks like you had a wardrobe malfunction, Miss Rodriguez." Emily gasps as cool air hits her exposed leg. Humiliation burns through her chest like acid. The group erupts in laughter as Emily scrambles to cover herself. Her face flames with embarrassment and rage. James holds up a strip of blue fabric like a trophy. His friends applaud as if he's accomplished something magnificent. Emily realizes this is their signature move, the final humiliation designed to break her spirit completely. "Maybe you should be more careful with your clothing, Ms. Rodriguez," James says with false concern. "Wouldn't want people to get the wrong idea about the new teacher." But his implication hangs in the air like a weapon. Emily understands that they'll spread rumors about her behavior to justify their actions. 30 students emerge from after-school activities. They stop to stare at the scene unfolding in the parking lot. Emily sees phones appear as teenagers begin recording. Her humiliation is about to become viral entertainment. James has orchestrated this perfectly. Maximum witnesses for maximum damage to her reputation and confidence. Michael Rodriguez has seen enough. 8 years of police work have taught him to recognize assault when he sees it. He steps out of his car with the controlled movement of a trained officer. His hand rests on his radio as he assesses the situation. 5 against 1. Clear signs of intimidation and unwanted physical contact. Evidence of property destruction in the torn dress. Police, step away from the woman. Michael's command voice cuts through the teenager's laughter like a blade. His badge glints in the afternoon sunlight as he approaches with measured steps. The group freezes, their casual arrogance evaporating as they realize an actual law enforcement officer has witnessed their behavior. James's face drains of color as he processes what's happening. His hand still clutches the torn fabric from Emily's dress. The evidence of assault is literally in his grasp. Multiple witnesses have watched him destroy another person's property and threaten his teacher, for the first time in his privileged life. James Wilson faces real consequences for his actions. "That's my wife you just assaulted." Michael's voice remains calm and professional, but Emily can see the controlled fury in his eyes. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The Miranda warning hangs in the air like a death sentence. James's friends scatter like roaches when the lights come on. Emily watches her husband transform into Detective Rodriguez. His movements become precise and purposeful as he documents the scene. The torn dress becomes evidence. The surrounding teenagers become witnesses. James Wilson becomes just another criminal who finally pushed too far. "This is a mistake." James's voice cracks as handcuffs click around his wrists. "My father will have your badge for this." His threats sound hollow now. The power dynamic has shifted completely. Michael smiles grimly as he guides James toward the police car. 16 years of marriage have taught him exactly how protective he becomes when someone threatens Emily. The parking lot fills with sirens as backup units arrive. Emily realizes that her husband called for support the moment he saw the situation developing. She's not alone anymore. The weight of institutional protection settles around her like armor. James Wilson may have his father's money, but Michael Rodriguez has the law on his side. Principal Matthews arrives as James disappears into the back of a police cruiser. His face is pale as he realizes the magnitude of what's happened. The school's protection of James has finally backfired. There's no explaining away a criminal arrest, witnessed by dozens of students. Emily watches the principal's carefully constructed world crumble as parents begin calling with questions about their children's safety. Detective Rodriguez completes his paperwork with methodical precision, every detail documented according to protocol. Assault, intimidation, destruction of property, creating a hostile environment. The charges pile up like building blocks in a case that will reshape Jefferson High School forever. Emily realizes she's witnessing the moment when justice finally catches up to institutional corruption. As the sun sets over Jefferson's manicured campus, Emily Rodriguez stands transformed, no longer the naive new teacher who walked into room 217 that morning. She's discovered something powerful about herself, when backed by truth and supported by love. Even the quietest person can roar loud enough to shake the foundations of injustice. James Wilson's reign of terror is over, but Emily's journey toward becoming an advocate for change has only just begun. The Jefferson High School campus buzzes with unprecedented chaos as word spreads about James Wilson's arrest. Students huddle in groups, their phones glowing as they share videos of their untouchable classmate being led away in handcuffs. Emily Rodriguez sits in Principal Matthews's office, her torn dress now evidence in a criminal case. The power dynamic that ruled this school for decades has shattered in a single afternoon. Principal Matthews paces behind his mahogany desk like a caged animal. Sweat beads on his forehead as he realizes the magnitude of the crisis facing his institution. Mrs. Rodriguez. His voice carries a desperation that wasn't there this morning. Surely we can resolve this matter internally. James is just a teenager. Boys will be boys, after all. His words hang in the air like a prayer to a God that no longer listens. Emily's transformation is visible in her posture, where this morning she sat hunched and apologetic. Now she meets the principal's gaze with steel in her spine. Principal Matthews. Her voice carries the quiet authority of someone who has found their strength. 5 teenage boys surrounded me, destroyed my property, and threatened me physically. This stopped being an internal matter the moment it became criminal. The office door opens as Detective Rodriguez enters with another officer. Emily's heart swells with pride as she watches her husband command the room with professional competence. 8 years of marriage have shown her Michael's dedication to justice. Now she's witnessing that same commitment applied to protecting her personal safety and dignity. Principal Matthews. Michael's voice is crisp and official. We need to discuss the pattern of behavior that led to today's incident. My preliminary investigation suggests this isn't James Wilson's first time intimidating faculty members. He opens a file folder with the methodical precision of someone who's built airtight cases. 3 teachers have resigned under suspicious circumstances in the past 2 years. And the color drains from Principal Matthews's face as he realizes the scope of what's being uncovered. His careful protection of the Wilson family has created a paper trail that any competent detective can follow. Emily watches the man who dismissed her concerns this morning struggle to find words. The institutional power that seemed so absolute has crumbled like sand against the tide of actual law enforcement. Mrs. Patterson, Mrs. Chen, and Mr. Davidson. Michael continues relentlessly. All reported similar patterns of harassment before suddenly resigning. All mentioned James Wilson specifically in their exit interviews. His eyes lock with the principal's. Exit interviews that seem to have been buried rather than investigated. Emily feels a surge of validation as she learns she wasn't the first victim. 3 dedicated educators before her suffered the same systematic intimidation. The weight of their silence suddenly makes sense. They had no support system, No spouse in law enforcement to document and prosecute the behavior that destroyed their careers. Principal Matthews slumps into his chair as the reality settles over him. His career is ending along with the Wilson family's reign of terror. "You don't understand," he whispers desperately. "The Wilsons practically built the new science wing. Their donations fund half our programs." His voice cracks as he realizes how hollow his excuses sound when spoken aloud. "Principal Matthews." Emily's voice cuts through his self-pity with surgical precision. "You prioritized donation money over teacher safety. You enabled a teenage predator because his parents write checks." Her words carry the weight of every educator who's been sacrificed on the altar of institutional greed. That stops today. The school board emergency meeting convenes at 7 p.m. The conference room fills with parents whose carefully constructed world of privilege has been shattered by criminal charges against one of their own. Board Chairman Robert Wilson sits at the head of the table, his face ashen as he faces the destruction of his family's reputation and influence. Emily enters the meeting flanked by Michael and their attorney. Her presence creates a ripple of whispered conversations throughout the room. She's changed into a simple black dress that emphasizes her professionalism. The torn blue fabric now sits in an evidence bag at the police station, waiting to testify against James Wilson in court. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chairman Wilson's voice wavers as he calls the meeting to order. "We're here to address the unfortunate incident involving my son and Mrs. Rodriguez." His attempt to minimize the situation falls flat. Everyone in the room has seen the arrest videos circulating on social media. Michael stands with the bearing of a man who's testified in countless courtrooms. His presence reminds everyone that this isn't just a school board matter anymore. "Chairman Wilson," his voice carries across the silent room, "your son committed multiple felonies today: assault, intimidation, destruction of property, and creation of a hostile environment for an educator." The board members shift uncomfortably as they realize they're facing a detective who won't be swayed by political pressure or donation threats. Emily watches their carefully maintained facades crumble as real accountability enters their insulated world. These are people accustomed to making problems disappear with money and influence. Now they face consequences that can't be bought. Attorney Sarah Chen, representing Emily, places a thick folder on the conference table. Her reputation for destroying institutional corruption precedes her into every room. "Members of the board," her voice is sharp and professional, "my client has endured systematic harassment enabled by administrative negligence. The pattern of behavior suggests institutional liability extending far beyond today's incident." Emily watches the board members' faces pale as they realize the legal exposure they're facing. Their insurance carriers will demand answers about why complaints were ignored and predatory behavior was enabled. The Wilson family's donations suddenly seem insignificant compared to the potential lawsuit settlements looming over the school. Mrs. Rodriguez, board member Patricia Hayes, speaks with the trembling voice of someone watching their world collapse. "Surely we can reach some accommodation. Perhaps a transfer to another position, or a leave of absence with full pay." Her desperate attempt at damage control reveals the board's fundamental misunderstanding of what they're facing. Emily rises from her chair with the quiet dignity of someone who has found their power. Her voice carries the strength of every teacher who's been silenced by institutional cowardice. "Mrs. Hayes," she says clearly, "I didn't come here to be bought off or transferred away. I came here to ensure that no other educator suffers what I endured today." The room falls silent as Emily's words hang in the air. She's not asking for personal compensation or revenge. She's demanding systemic change that will protect future teachers from the predatory behavior that's been normalized at Jefferson High School. Her moral authority fills the space like light driving back darkness. Michael steps forward with a document that makes several board members visibly flinch. His smile contains no warmth as he addresses the group. The district attorney's office has opened a comprehensive investigation into institutional failures at Jefferson High School. He announces, every complaint that was buried, every teacher who was silenced, every incident that was covered up. Chairman Wilson's hands shake as he realizes the scope of what's being uncovered. His son's arrest was just the beginning of a legal avalanche that will reshape everything he's built. Detective Rodriguez, his voice barely rises above a whisper. My son made a mistake. Surely we can handle this without destroying lives. Mr. Wilson, Emily's voice cuts through his self-pity like a sword. Your son didn't make a mistake. He committed a crime as the culmination of years of enabled behavior. Her eyes meet his across the table. The only lives being destroyed are the ones your family has already damaged through systematic abuse of power. The meeting dissolves into chaos as board members begin pointing fingers at each other. The careful unity that protected the Wilson family fragments under the pressure of criminal investigation. Emily watches the implosion with satisfaction. Justice delayed isn't justice denied when the reckoning finally arrives. Attorney Chen slides a document across the table to Chairman Wilson. His face crumbles as he reads the comprehensive list of reforms being demanded. Mandatory harassment training, independent oversight of disciplinary procedures, victim advocacy programs. The entire power structure that enabled his son's behavior must be dismantled and rebuilt. 3 weeks later, James Wilson stands before Judge Margaret Foster in juvenile court. His expensive lawyer can't disguise the gravity of assault charges captured on multiple cell phone videos. Emily sits in the gallery, her presence a reminder that his victims are real people with names and faces, not abstract obstacles to be eliminated through intimidation. The courtroom fills with current and former Jefferson High School staff. Teachers who were previously silenced have found their voices through Emily's courage. Mrs. Patterson sits in the front row. Her testimony about similar harassment having been crucial to establishing James's pattern of behavior. Her vindication brings tears to Emily's eyes. James's usual arrogance has evaporated under the weight of actual consequences. The teenager who terrorized teachers now stands small and frightened before a judge who won't be influenced by his family's wealth. His father's political connections mean nothing in a courtroom where evidence and law determine outcomes. Mr. Wilson. Judge Foster's voice carries the authority of 30 years on the bench. You have pleaded guilty to assault, intimidation, and destruction of property. Your behavior toward Mrs. Rodriguez was not a teenage prank. It was criminal conduct that could have escalated to much worse violence. Emily watches James's face crumble as the judge outlines his sentence. 100 hours of community service, mandatory anger management counseling, and a restraining order prohibiting contact with his victims. More importantly, his juvenile record will be accessible to any college admissions office that requests it. His privileged future suddenly looks very different. The transformation at Jefferson High School unfolds over the following months. Principal Matthews's resignation opens the door for Dr. Maria Santos, an administrator with reputation for protecting teachers and holding students accountable regardless of their family wealth. Emily walks the hallways with renewed confidence. Her classroom has become a symbol of what's possible when educators refuse to be intimidated. The new anti-harassment policies carry teeth that the old system lacked. Every complaint is investigated by independent contractors who can't be influenced by donation threats or political pressure. Students quickly learn that behavior which was previously tolerated will now result in swift and serious consequences. The culture of entitled impunity begins to crumble. Emily's literature classes have become the most popular in the school. Students gravitate toward a teacher who demonstrated real courage under pressure. Her lessons on moral courage in To Kill a Mockingbird carry special weight. She's living proof that standing up to bullies, even powerful ones, can create meaningful change. Michael attends every school board meeting in his capacity as Emily's husband. His presence serves as a quiet reminder that law enforcement is watching how the institution treats its educators. The board's decision-making process has become transparent and accountable. The days of backroom deals and buried complaints are over. 3 former teachers have returned to Jefferson High School. Mrs. Patterson now serves as assistant principal for student affairs, while Mrs. Chen heads the new Teacher Advocacy Committee. Their presence ensures that institutional memory of past failures will guide future improvements. The cost of enabling predatory behavior has become too high to ignore. Emily's reputation spreads beyond Jefferson's campus as other educators reach out for support and guidance. She's become an accidental advocate for teacher rights in a profession that often leaves its members vulnerable to institutional abuse. Her speaking engagements at education conferences draw standing ovations. Her story resonates with teachers who've faced similar situations without support. The Wilson family's influence at Jefferson High School has ended completely. Chairman Wilson resigned from the board in disgrace, while his wife's charity work couldn't overcome the scandal surrounding their son's criminal behavior. Their donations, once considered essential, have been replaced by a more diverse funding base that doesn't give any single family disproportionate influence. James Wilson himself has largely disappeared from public view. His transfer to a military boarding school was accompanied by strict conditions about his behavior and academic performance. The entitled teenager who once terrorized teachers now faces daily accountability and structure. His journey toward understanding consequences has only just begun. Emily finds herself serving on district-wide committees focused on educator protection and student accountability. Her transformation from victim to advocate continues to inspire systemic changes throughout the school system. The quiet teacher who once feared confrontation now commands rooms filled with administrators and policymakers. On a crisp October afternoon, Emily receives an unexpected visitor, Dr. Amanda Price, the newly hired English teacher at Roosevelt High School across town, sits nervously in Emily's classroom during her planning period. The young woman's hands shake as she describes harassment from wealthy students and administrative indifference that feels devastatingly familiar. Dr. Price, Emily's voice carries the warmth of someone who's walked this difficult path. You're not alone, and you're not powerless. What happened to me can't happen to you because we now know how to fight back. She opens her desk drawer to reveal a folder thick with documentation procedures, legal contacts, and advocacy resources. The conversation lasts 2 hours as Emily shares everything she's learned about protecting herself and holding institutions accountable. Dr. Price leaves with a comprehensive action plan and the phone number of attorney Sarah Chen. The cycle of silence and victimization that once seemed inevitable has been broken. Knowledge and support now travel between educators facing similar challenges. Michael picks Emily up after school, as he has every day since the parking lot incident. Their marriage has deepened through shared commitment to justice and protection of the vulnerable. He's proud of the woman his wife has become. The quiet strength he always saw in her has blossomed into public advocacy that's changing lives. How was your day? Beautiful, Michael asks as Emily settles into the passenger seat. Her smile carries satisfaction that comes from meaningful work. "I helped another teacher today," she responds, someone who needed to know that she has rights and support. The pride in Michael's eyes reminds Emily that her journey from victim to advocate has inspired more people than she realizes. The evening news features a segment about Jefferson High School's transformation. The reporter interviews Emily in her classroom, highlighting how one teacher's courage catalyzed systematic change throughout the district. Her words carry the weight of someone who's learned that silence enables abuse, while speaking truth creates accountability. "When I started teaching here," Emily tells the camera, "I thought my job was just to inspire a love of literature. I learned that sometimes teaching means standing up to bullies, even when they're your own students." Her message resonates with educators across the state. Sometimes the most important lessons happen outside the curriculum. The segment includes footage of James Wilson's community service. The former bully now works at a homeless shelter under court supervision. His designer clothes replaced by simple work attire. The irony isn't lost on viewers that his punishment involves serving people he once would have dismissed. Real consequences often provide the best education. Principal Santos appears in the interview to discuss the new culture at Jefferson High School. Her commitment to protecting teachers and holding students accountable has created an environment where education can flourish without fear. The test scores and teacher retention rates have improved dramatically when educators feel safe and supported. Everyone benefits. Emily's story has become a case study in education administration programs. Her journey from victim to advocate illustrates how individual courage can create institutional change. A year after the parking lot incident, Emily stands before a packed auditorium at the State Education Conference. Her keynote address about educator advocacy draws the largest crowd in the event's history. The standing ovation lasts 5 minutes. Every teacher in the audience understands the courage required to transform a moment of victimization into a movement for change. "When James Wilson tore my dress in that parking lot," Emily's voice carries across the silent auditorium. "He thought he was destroying another teacher who dared to challenge his behavior. Instead, he provided the evidence that ended his reign of terror and protected every educator who comes after me." The audience erupts in applause as Emily's words resonate with teachers who've faced their own bullies. Her message that documentation, legal support, and institutional accountability can overcome even the most entrenched corruption provides hope for educators in similar situations. Emily's presentation includes practical guidance about recognizing harassment patterns, documenting incidents properly, and accessing legal resources. Her comprehensive approach ensures that other teachers won't face the isolation and helplessness that once characterized her experience. Knowledge shared becomes power multiplied. Her individual victory has become a collective tool for change. That evening, Emily returns to her classroom to find a note on her desk. The handwriting belongs to Sarah Martinez, a shy sophomore who rarely speaks in class. "Mrs. Rodriguez," the note begins, "watching you stand up to James Wilson taught me that I don't have to accept being bullied either. I reported Tommy Henderson to Dr. Santos today. Thank you for showing me that quiet people can have loud voices when justice calls." Emily reads the note twice as tears blur her vision. Sarah's courage represents the ultimate validation of everything she's endured and accomplished. The ripple effects of standing up to institutional corruption extend far beyond her own experience. Students are learning that they have rights and voices that deserve respect. Michael finds Emily in her classroom as darkness falls over the Jefferson campus. Her tears are ones of joy rather than pain as she shares Sarah's note. "You've changed this place," he says softly. But more importantly, you've changed yourself. The quiet strength that attracted him 16 years ago has blossomed into public advocacy that continues to inspire and protect others. The parking lot where Emily's nightmare began now represents something entirely different. Students walk through it safely, knowing that predatory behavior will be met with swift consequences. The transformation isn't just in policy, but in culture. Respect and accountability have replaced entitlement and impunity. As Emily and Michael drive home through streets lined with autumn leaves, she reflects on the journey from victim to advocate. The path wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sometimes the quiet ones have the loudest roar when justice calls, and sometimes that roar echoes long enough to change everything. James Wilson has faced legal consequences. Emily Rodriguez has transformed from victim to advocate. Jefferson High School has implemented comprehensive reforms, protecting educators and holding students accountable, regardless of family wealth or influence. Emily receives a phone call from Dr. Jessica Adams, superintendent of Riverside School District. 3 counties away, another pattern of wealthy student harassment has emerged, and they need someone with experience fighting institutional corruption. Emily notices a new teacher sitting alone in the faculty lounge, her hands shaking as she grades papers. The same isolated fear Emily once knew is visible in the young woman's posture and expression. Emily's satisfaction at her own victory transforms into protective determination. She realizes her work isn't finished while other educators suffer the same institutional betrayal she once endured. Emily looks at her phone, then at the frightened new teacher, then back at her phone. The choice between personal peace and continued advocacy hangs in the balance as 2 different futures stretch before her. Sometimes, the quiet ones have the loudest roar when justice calls, and sometimes that roar echoes long enough to change everything.